think it was 17th. Oh, it doesn't show up on mine. It's on my calendar, but it's not on this calendar.
Call this meeting in order. All stand facing the flag. Pledge. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Put your mic on.
Just turn it on.
Approval of minutes.
Make a motion that we approve when
Roll,
here.
roll call, Tim.
Do what?
Roll call.
Okay, excuse me. Thank you. R.J. Donovan.
Here.
Brett Luther.
Present.
Tim Yoakum's here. Thank you for that correction. Sort of approval of minutes.
I have make a motion that we approve minutes, but I do have comments to make. If I can find it, there we go.
I'll second the motion.
Got discussion?
Yes. Maybe. There we go. Under Part E, in the 2023 Commissioner meeting approval of schedules, we were looking at was 2 meetings per month and adopted keeping the time schedule the same.
Yes, I would, yeah. I sent a suggestion to Britt. I know this past year we done 2 meetings a month. I would like to keep that. If there's no other objections, I'd like to strike the January 31st meeting at 6:30 and then the Tuesday, August 29th meeting at 8:15. And that would leave us at 2 meetings a month.
I think we already approved those,
Yep.
keeping the time schedule
Yep.
the same. So
Yep.
if you'll make those corrections.
January 31st, August.
29th.
Second, on county annual bid award under section I, or part I. Discussion that no bids were received. Well, it says it, first of all, it says a motion was made by Luther to go out for bid for the northern sector of Vermilion County for aggregates, and it was seconded by Devin. All in favor, was motion carried. That discussion went on to say that the discussion that no bids were received for aggregates in the northern sector of the county, and it was in the best interest of the county to seek bids for this sector only. If you would add that to the minutes.
Do you have that typed up?
I do.
Can you send it?
I can.
Thank you.
Not right now, though.
Yep.
And if you'll accept those 2 additions, then I call for a
Fine.
vote, or unless there's other discussion.
I don't have any.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approval of we just did the minutes,
Claims.
right? You're right here. Approval of claims.
Motion that we approve claims.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of payroll.
Make a motion to approve payroll.
Second the motion to approve payroll.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. I want to say something that carries on to what was discussed previously. Rogers Group and what was the other one?
ProAg.
ProAg. They should be. Contact them. They should have their quotes sent in.
Yeah, both of them should be in.
So that's something that you guys can look at in the meeting if you want to. So we're going to move on. No public comment.
We need to, okay.
Okay, we're going to have election of commissioner offices.
Make a motion for Tim Yoakum for president of the commissioners for 2023.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Making a motion to approve Britton Luther as the vice president of the board.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Next is the County Board of Finance meeting schedule.
I think Florendo was wanting it to be on this last meeting, but that's no longer our last meeting now, or 31st, whatever date that was. So we have to have a meeting in January, the Board of Finance. RJ, are you not president of that board?
I have served for the last 2 years, so
You wanna
yeah,
be-
we can reach out to Florida and see if we can do it the other meeting, or we may push it to a special meeting.
She can't make she indicated she can't make the next meeting, commissioners meeting anyway.
Okay. Yeah, we can email her and see what works for her schedule.
Professional services interview schedule.
For scanning documents, that was scheduled for January 5th from 3. Interviews are 20 minutes long, starting at 3 o'clock and going to 4:30. We have SBS portals coming first, Crowley's second, and Burke 1/3. They'll be here in the Commissioner's courtroom. I'd like to invite all the office holders, if they will, to attend that meeting. And not that if they will submit their questions beforehand, we only have 20 minutes to interview in each one of these. And so it needs to move along at a rather good clip. They'll be presenting first, then the commissioners will ask questions second. County participation will be limited, if any at all, at that point. So.
Is there any way, Brenda, you could send something out to everybody about that?
I don't know.
Within the
She has
courthouse?
her-
I have not yet.
Yeah.
I said, could you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, we're scheduled from 3 to 4:30 on that.
Okay. I'm gonna lump these next two and together, D&E. We did sign a contract with Accurate Engineering. I can't get their name right, but they are starting to look at that design, and they'll be bringing back information to us. So it's kind of both of those are linked together.
They are, but the first one, the courthouse occupancy and so forth, it's awaiting our participation, if you will.
I'd like to see what they have with the floor plan first, and
Speaking on that, Tim, the MSA, I know I sent some emails and Britton sent a reply on that. Are we gonna strike any potential professional service company that doesn't sign our MSA? So I was looking back at the minutes back last year, and I found that we had specifically said we wouldn't strike anybody if they didn't sign it. But it seems like that's the way we're moving towards now, or at least Britton indicated that in an email.
I think one thing, if they're not covered in that contract, then in the specific services, then they're out of it anyway, right?
The intent for an MSA is to have contractors who are in agreement with the county's position, including insurances, ownership of documents. Anyway, there's a whole host of potential issues there. What you'll find in most professional service agreements, or any agreement, is they're usually slanted toward the party who drafts those documents. So if we enter in with XYZ company, then they're usually favorable toward XYZ company at the detriment of the county. There's a number of our documents that we sign that identify their employees, everybody under the sun almost, that could be employed by them, and we sign those type documents. The indemnification has great ramifications to the county. Not only that, it says indemnify and defend. And when it does that, that means that if a company causes a problem, even if they cause it, we will defend them for their error or their omission or wherever it may be. So it has can have large benefits or detriments to it. The advantage of having an MSA is that it removes that type of language. Still doesn't relieve the county of responsibility. It does still maintain that, but it puts us back on an even playing ground. With the MSA, if you do not keep people on the MSA and you go to another agreement, by all rights, most companies will send that to legal. Now, our legal doesn't really review those type things. They just say it's legal. If you sign it, then you've agreed to these terms, conditions, whatever. And if you sign it, it's legal. That's about the extent that John takes it to. It doesn't say it's favorable to the county. In fact, oftentimes he's even told me, well, if you sign it, good for you, but it's not good for the county. But that's not what he does. So whenever we sign other people's agreements, and if we don't enforce our MSA of people that we provide those services, they provide those services to us, then we're saying, well, nobody needs an MSA, just send us your agreement and we'll go with it. if we kind of like you. Now, if we do have somebody that, if we have a service that we do not have, that the company does not provide that service, then sure, we need to go out and look for that if it's not being provided. Everyone has signed our MSA today, except for one company that I know of. I've asked them 3 times of why they didn't want to sign that was RQAW, and they still, as of this date, has not approached me or told me why. They may have told somebody else, but they haven't told me.
Did they say to you what, I mean, what, you're asking a
I
question.
have,
so
no,
what is the question that you have that,
My question is, are we striking services from any consideration if they don't sign the Vermilion County MSA? Because in the email I asked, I never recalled a vote or an agreement by the
There was
majority of the
agreement
board.
here. There was, that came up.
Yeah,
with
there was an agreement made that we would send out an MSA, but we never said in that meeting that we would strike people if they didn't sign it.
Well, I can't say, the preference is to go with our MSA people. I don't know that we ever said we took anybody off the list. But if we don't sign the people that have signed our MSA, then, since we don't have a process and internal control to look at our documents and what we're signing, and because we're maybe not as good at reading documents or understanding what all the terminology is, we put our county at risk further. And for us not to use the companies that are willing to sign our MSA, I think it's to the detriment of the county. If you want to bring somebody forward that provides a service that some of our MSA members do, again, I think it's a problem. I think it can be allowed, sure. But
I just wanted clarification on whether, like RQAW could be used in the future if they don't sign our MSA.
I don't understand even the question with RQAW. I mean, they're a large company, they do work over the place, and we just had Azar from Greencastle, an engineering firm, very small engineering firm, and he signed that. So I'd like to know, they need to send me a letter, or us a letter, and say, this is the reason why, and then it might make sense, but I just hear them saying, it's wrong, and until you bring me some information, I need to why. Why
I just want to know now, from this point forward, are we striking anybody that doesn't sign our MSA? Take out RQAW from the picture. I'm just asking.
I'd say yes if they don't fit the criteria. Why would?
So you guys are taking the position that the county is striking anybody that doesn't sign the MSA.
I didn't say that.
That's what Tim just said.
Well,
that's fine. You asked you guys. That's him.
I'm just saying from my
asking.
opinion that he's entitled to his.
What I said was that if somebody wants to give us a proposal, we'll entertain it. I will not vote for it if we have a service agreement with somebody that has an MSA. They can submit it all day long, but I will not agree with it until they sign our MSA. Or we change our MSA and all the others agree to those changes. But every time you want to go in and favor one company, RQAW or whoever it may be, for whatever reason.
I have no favoritism, Brent. This is just a question.
Yeah.
So it's to the detriment of the rest of the MSA, and it's to the detriment of the county, because now we're basically opening it up and saying, it didn't really matter if you sign our MSA, we'll back down and use your agreements. So that's the reason for it anyway. So no, I've entertained it, but I will not vote for it.
But there's some reason why they won't sign it, and that's why I'd like to know.
Well, I've asked them as well, and I'm waiting on an answer, just like Britain is as well.
Give us an answer. Have them give us an answer to why, and then it might make sense, it might not. But I'm saying I haven't heard that. I'd like to know why. That's what I.
It's fine, but they've had 6 months to answer why. They're not interested in doing business with the county apparently.
Well, they've done quite a bit of business with us. In fact, I'd like to see them do more.
Anyway.
We're going to move on to county engineer status, and there's no change on that from you or I.
I don't know what I said last time, but if I've not heard back from NDOT from the letter I just sent on any front at that point. As far as the regional county engineer.
Nice won't have a meeting after the first year after holiday, so it should be, we're going to schedule that within the next month for me.
Okay. Have we advertised at all at any point in time? I know this county engineer has been on there for not just us, but previous administrations.
Well, I know they want to talk, so that's a positive thing. We'll get with them. Opioid, I say it wrong. I say it wrong all the time. Funding status. fund distribution use. Is that gonna be to the health department?
No, it's not. It's through the council and through the commissioners. The health department will ask them to make a recommendation, but don't recall seeing one yet.
Okay.
There was a recommendation to finance Pier Court with it, which was apparently, bet that was only a suggestion from third party. I've not heard anything else from anybody at this point.
Okay. RJ, you want to do a broadband update on what you know from?
Yeah, if I can get my email pulled up here. Well, of course I have no service unless somebody else has the email from from Joink. It was sent earlier
I turned
today.
my phone off, so
You're talking, I got that.
you got it up.
Oh, I don't have it up now.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Irony there.
Yeah, if we had broadband, we did.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It is.
Yeah, the update is I have no internet to give the update.
And yes, so I have to go to, you want to go to the next thing while I pull it up?
2023 Community Crossing Grant first round status and grant administration. We're getting with Melissa. I think it has to be in toward the end of the month, so we got to get on that.
How are we doing, what are we doing with that? Is she going to be have you worked out a way in which she's going to be an employee, or is she going to be a contract?
I don't think it's going to work out that way. I don't think it's going to be able to. I don't see her be able to attain employee status. Having it revert back to the way it was before. Now, you've lost your ERC contact now, right?
Yeah. She's gonna take the test and
Okay.
even,
I think I probably ought to take it too, just to be familiar with it, you know.
the thing is, when you take it, you have to do the whole time, so you gotta allow yourself at least 3 or 4 hours uninterrupted time.
Okay. I thought you were going to say 3 or 4 days.
No, yes, on the beach. Okay.
Well, I thought I got it, but I don't see it in here now.
Mike, you want to come up here about your vehicles? Is that mic on, Mike? Right there.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay.
I was just wanting to get authorization to go ahead and purchase our 3 new patrol vehicles for the year, get it ordered so we could get it here quicker.
Okay. Everything's in the budget and everything's okay, so.
Yep, everything looks good. I think all 3 of you got the quotes.
It's actually cheaper this year, right, Mike?
The Tahoes are cheaper than what the Ford Explorers are this year by about around $2,000 each, yeah.
Good deal.
Okay. Are they very far out on if you order them?
I was told today if we get them ordered this week, we should have them May, June sometime.
Does this include trade-in on the ones we have? How are we disposing of those?
We've got 2, mid-year we got rid of a Jeep Cherokee and a Chevy Blazer, and then what we're looking at now is cycling out 2 2016 Ford Explorers with well over 200,000 miles on them each. My understanding is that we're probably going to send them to the auction.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 3 vehicles as provided by the sheriff.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is your internet that slow, Britt?
Well, I don't find it for some reason. My apologies.
I shut mine off, so.
I guess I could look on my email. Thought I'd already filed it, huh?
I think so. Well, yeah, I don't. I know it was at least us 3. I think it was
From
something
joint, is that what you're looking for?
like- yeah, Timothy.
Okay. We'll read this joint. It says this is a Vermillion County shape file, which we have submitted to NLC Grant. It is a high-level design and subject to change in the design. We not fully staked the path for the other utilities, and we'll need to do a bit more research. This is, however, the most desired path of the service to the homes listed on the grant from our current project. And there's a map that's included in there. Nice, we could put that on our website.
Yeah, here it is. Two things. Anyway, they were staking, or going to start staking right away, and then, but the second part of that is that they're planning on starting the work in March. It's like the 1st of March is what he said, but they could vary a little bit.
I wonder when they'll be needing their funding.
Don't know. We disbanded, or I guess it was never a standing committee for the broadband. Are we prepared now to develop, to have a standing committee for broadband?
Well, I think that a lot of that the company we've been talking to, they're wanting to come back, and they gave us a proposal to do the research on that, and they'd be more apt to get the information that we really need, to make any decisions. So, but
It would still be nice to have a county-based, somebody that understands how this is happening, because so far it's kind of fell apart for the last 2 years. They keep reinventing the wheel, if you will, or reinventing the program, not the wheel, but reinventing the program. But I don't see anybody I don't think we have anybody in the county that's marking time with this. Anyways, suggestion we have a standing committee for this broadband to keep abreast of it. I'm not the person to be doing that. And I don't know if we have anybody at this point that is doing that.
I think we ought to get the information back from the people doing the study and then proceed after you get that information back.
Weren't they wanting to do a study, but we pay them for it?
Yeah.
We agreed to that?
No, I'm saying that we need to have it back again to talk to them, and I think it'd be best to have someone do the research and then get someone, or if you want to form a group after you get the information. But we ain't got that. So I put that down as a note for me to have you an answer next meeting from them. In fact, they can come to the next meeting. I wish they'd come back. Do you have any problem with that?
I don't.
Have them come on. I'll call them. In fact, I was trying to get hold of them yesterday. I didn't have time. Okay. You want to jump around here? You want to take care of the ordinance at 2216?
Yeah, sure. On December 22nd, we did end up closing the county courthouse at 3 o'clock due to some inclement weather. Was closed an hour early. I would ask the Board of Commissioners consider approving county ordinance number 2022-16 by title, an ordinance closing the courthouse at 3 o'clock on December 22nd, 2022. I'd like to make that motion if there's a second.
Second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Britt, are you looking up? Because next we need that Bridge 90.
The thing with Bridge 90 is that we need to give the notice to proceed on that. So that's the only thing we need to do this evening.
You want to make a motion?
We let the contract last meeting. So I make a motion that we give notice or agreement, anyway, notice to proceed to White Construction for Bridge number 90.
Those whites, right? You said white.
White Construction,
Yep.
right.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Jail construction status, we are almost there.
We have substantial completion January 6th, which is this Friday. What that means is that we still have work to do. It's going to be in the commissioning end of things at that point in time. Construction will effectively be complete. What we still have to do, still a number of things, but commissioning period will be January 9th to the end of January, basically January 28th, in which time we'll be removing the construction trailers. The sheriff's trailer will be relocated to the offices along with the other 2 trailers for equipment and paraphernalia that's in those. Furnishings are going to be moved in January 9th to the 13th, so next Monday through Friday, all the furniture should be moved in and ready for inspection, and sheriff will hopefully on that following Monday be reviewing all that, make sure that it's in good order and no scratches, dents, etc., broken equipment. Final inspection will be January 31st, which we should all be involved in that as far as commissioners go. That date also will, before that date, you're welcome to go out and make a list, if you would, of anything that you see that's questionable or anything at all, because the 31st will be our final inspection day. So if it's not listed on that date as being not proper, then it's going to be probably accepted. It does give us a warranty, though, with substantial completion being January 6th. That means that starts our 1-year warranty period. That effectively gives us, for labor, material, and equipment, 1 year on all the contractors, regardless of any of the manufacturer warranties and guarantees that may have. That's an important date because come December 1st of next year, we need to, at least by December 1st next year, we need to re-inspect the jail for all the conditions that we're inspecting for now. And that'll be our last chance to hold the contractors and manufacturers, for that matter, liable for our jail and for any warranty items that should be taken care of or any deficiencies that we find in the system. That's not to say we can't do that throughout the year, but if we don't do it by December 31st, January 6th of next year, we will be complete. They will not have that responsibility. Not that they still won't honor it, but they won't have that responsibility officially anymore or legally. Inmate return will start the first week in February, and it'll be staged through the end of February, and that'll be dependent upon the sheriff's schedule. And it'll be totally up to him on how he brings those inmates back. And even if it starts on the first week of February, if it starts earlier or later, it's up to the sheriff and how he wants to administrate that. A couple of things that will be outstanding that we know that will go past our January 31st final inspection is that we have an asphalt overlay that will have to go on the sheriff's trailer. Until it's moved, that overlay can't be placed. So we'll need to do that at our own dime. We'll be reimbursed the money for whatever wasn't put in there. But we'll need to take care of that going into whenever we want to pave during the summer, or maybe it's underneath the community crossings bill, but a separate line item if we do it underneath that time. We have an electrical panel and switchgear that were delayed. They're temporary, I guess you would call it, and it's due. The permanent cabinets and switchgear are to be here in March 2023. The main electrical panel has been split in two in order to operate the jail because of a delay on the main electrical panel. Now it'll be May of 23 when that actually arrives. There'll be no cost to the jail. There will be a slight interruption up to an hour on the jail to actually throw the circuits and energize the new main panels and the switchgear, but it shouldn't cause any problems for the jail at that particular part of time. That'll be Garmong will be back in to administer that and work with the sheriff. I think that's the primary. Anyway, the commissioning period will be getting all the cameras and all the electronics, making sure everything's working in the proper angles, and the data collection and so forth, and that all the locks and everything are talking to each other and talking to the sheriff's people and to the dispatch as well. Anything you want to know? Anything else?
I'm pretty happy, Hocamp, what's going on?
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Good answer.
Go back up on NDOT meeting status, January 3rd. Some of you may know, might not know, is we've started doing something different in this county. I think has been not done. We're trying to get our bridges on a schedule of replacement. And in the past, we've always, when it broke, we fixed it. And that's not always the best way to do it. And then when we got to fix it, then we got to pay for it. So we've got Bridge 122 funded here about 2 years ago. The 163 bridge in Hillsdale is about $850,900. And these are 80-20, correct? 80-20 funding. And Britain's just got his done. That's going to be, so what we're trying to do, instead of waiting until it bites us and we pay for it out of the county coffers, we're planning this stuff ahead of replacement, which is 80-20. So instead of the county paying 100%, we're only paying 20. So it's just smart planning, and work with Clark Dietzer doing a lot of our planning for us. And you had your conversation today with them, give an update on that.
On Bridge 32, it's about a $1.8 million project. And it went very well. The conversations went today after we did our, once we made our interview and completed what we were going to say. They basically didn't have any questions, so that was favorable. It looks like they only got about 15 projects in their fold right now, and so it looks very favorable that we'll prevail on this, especially since I think we covered every base that they could have wanted. So it was very well done. Thanks for Clark Dietzer for participating with us. It's at 1050 South and in Norton Creek. It's about 2 miles, no, 1.25 miles west of Lilly or Elanco. Is about where it is.
Past Selma Church and over the hill, down on the bend.
Just before you get to the split of 200 East. We'll have another bridge up there on 200 East that we're already working with, is 37 as well. So anyway, we have 2 other bridges that are coming up. Bridge 122, which you had worked on a couple of years ago, it comes up in 2025 for that work, and then we have Bridge 37 in 2027. This bridge will be in 2028. So we're right now, until we get our asset management plan complete, we'll be doing 1 bridge a year, and then I think we'll be able to approach council and maybe do some other things. I've got another proposal here in a little bit. I'd like to. It's not on the agenda right now, but I'm going to mention it anyway. So that's where we're at.
Okay. We'll drop down to Park Vermain Animal Shelter. I've talked with Mr. Fortner yesterday, and I guess his main concern right now is getting something in there to treat the water. When that was done years ago, the shelter had a problem with water in the summer. They couldn't get enough water to take care of the facilities, and so we hooked into the raw water, which goes to the rise, which, we got to do something about that here for long. But so they're looking at some way to treat that water. They also have a well there, but the well can't keep up, and I would like eventually that we get some way to get them treated water. We're working with Hillsdale. Did Hillsdale say that they would at one, or did they ever come back and say they would?
They were going to discuss it with them, and I don't know what the status is with that.
Okay.
But they were supposed to talk, and I think the gentleman southward.
Southwood was there.
But I think he was sick, and I don't know if that, when they were supposed to meet, I don't know if it ever happened or not.
Okay. I'll
I
check
don't
with
know.
Hillsdale about that. RJ, you got anything to say about it? I know you've been involved in some of that. So.
Nothing other than the fact that I think the shelter does need some, help in some capacity, whether it's from Hillsdale or whether it's from, the county. I think they got some quotes to put like a short fix out there. I think it was like $3,000 or $2,500. I know they're spending lots of money on treating the animals just because the water is, not treated. So if it's going to be a long-term thing, I'd like to see us, even if we can, find $2,000-3,000, or maybe even ask the council for a little additional help for them. So
One of the issues is that, was it Park supposed to match, are we supposed to be even on our contributions to the Humane Society?
It'd be nice if it was.
yeah, years ago, Vermilion's always been higher than Park. Looking at this payment here, I think back when Vermilion County was given, was it 27,000? When we were at like 25, they were still at 15 or something, or 20. And then when we went to 35, they might have bumped up to 20. And then when we went to 50, they never. I think they're still at 20 or 25. They never did match us. But we just felt like the shelter needed it, and so Vermillion County upped it. We asked them to match it, but I don't believe they.
I thought they wanted to be on the agenda tonight. Did they? I guess not.
I,
I
it's
talked
next
to him,
week.
and he said he need to come, but we'll look at some other stuff first.
Okay.
You know, I'm there with him, and I know RJ's been contacting him, and I've done a lot of work for him over the years, and
We mentioned, or RJ sent something out about Duke Energy, they're
yeah, that's
looking
a
for.
possible. Yeah, that was it like a grant that they give out? They disperse out, and they asked if we want to add any organizations to it. So that'd be one that I would suggest if they.
what I did, I had a meeting with Duke Energy about that, and we did put them on an additional out of that, so they will be getting some money, a couple $1,000 out of that.
Good.
For the Humane Society. Oh,
Good.
good.
That's
Excellent.
what I did. That
Thank
will
you
be-
for doing
Well,
it.
That will happen.
Okay, good.
Good
Yeah.
suggestion, and thank you for doing it.
I told James that I didn't. He asked me about that today, and I didn't know. I didn't know if
I
they submitted
got
it or
hold of
not.
him yesterday and gave him all the information from Heart Vermillion Humane Shelter, all their ID numbers and everything, so they
Good.
put it in the system to get that. So
Awesome.
that's probably gonna happen. I
Uh,
think,
One other thing that, last meeting, we talked about the NOFA Bridge Preventive Maintenance Program. Anyway, I found out a little bit more about that. It's due at the end of this month. Opening it, actually, I was
is
told
that the first time
open
it's coming out?
I don't know if it's the first time or not.
I've
It
heard
sounds like a
before.
new program, but I can't say it's not been there before. We just didn't recognize it. It's the first I've heard of it. But I asked Clark Deeds for recommendations on that. Basically what it is the it's like our bridge asset management plan where we get the 80/20. Well, it's the same program except that you can't replace a bridge. It's for preventive maintenance. And it looks like it is out 5 years, but what's happened in talking with NDOT previously, when programs, a lot of the counties are not ready for these programs to come into play, and they haven't got their homework done or had all the information ready when it was to be let to them. And what happens is they get pushed back. They don't lose their program or lose their monies, but they'll push other people up into that slot. And I guess that's been happening more and more often because the counties are not getting the programs the information in their programs completed in time. And what I'd like to do is to do the same thing that we're doing with our bridges, but these are for preventive maintenance, not for replacement of our bridges. I asked Clark Deeds to name 3 of them if they would, and they did come up with 3. And that's bridge number 41, which is at 400 East in Raccoon Creek, bridge 26, which is 300 East at Norton Creek, and then bridge number 75, which is Main Street at Vermilion River. All those kick in. It's a 5-year program, and all these are listed on our preventive maintenance asset plan at this point for these bridges. What the amount ends up being is like $235,000 total between the 3 of them, spread over 3 years, as far as our match goes. The first one being 340, or the match being 69.8 thousand. Bridge 70, put my calluses on. Bridge number 26 at 81.4 thousand. Bridge 75 at 84,000 is our match. These are all, the lowest of them is Bridge 41 at 349,000. Bridge 26 407,000, and Bridge 75 at 420,000 is the estimate in today's dollars. Again, these are 5 years out, so they increase them by whatever we think that the construction costs are going to be in 5 years. But this is another program of which we can use instead of using our community crossing for overlays, different aspects. And what these will do for us is that it'll increase these bridge lives by another 50 years if we can maintain them. Basically, especially with these overlays. We've got a number of box beam bridges out there, of which will require us to get the water out of them. The water inside those are just tearing these bridges apart. And we're lucky to get 50 years out of them when they should be a 75 to 100 year bridges, but we're losing good 25 plus years out of them though. So I'd like to see us do these things. Again, it's 5 years out. It's preventive maintenance, but it's 5 years out of preventive maintenance. And it is on our list of things that we have, that we would like to do anyway, as far as our asset management plan. We're not done with it yet, but this is again a beginning to these will fall right on the top
When's
layer.
that gotta be submitted?
By the end of January. We already have most of it together, and in the work that we did for the Bridge 35, a lot of that's already compiled. So it's a matter of just completing an application and changing these numbers and inserting these bridge numbers into it. So it's not an onerous task. In fact, it can be done within a few days, but not without us saying we want to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to proceed with something like that. I don't see why we wouldn't want to try to add 50 years of life to any of our bridges, so I think it's definitely a good thing to proceed with.
We do have others of note. We do have others that, unfortunately, they need maintenance before 5 years are up.
Yeah.
And so these are the candidates for that we can. Where we
See,
can
we'll
wait
have another
5
meeting
years.
before then anyway.
Huh?
We'll have another meeting before then for the deadline.
We need the applications prepared though. So I'd like to prepare the applications and we can approve the applications at the next meeting if that's meets with
Yeah, no problem
with
with it.
everybody's approval.
It's fine with me.
Fine with me.
Good, thank you. We'll do that.
We're getting close to being done, believe it or not. Architectural, this kind of goes back to what we originally discussed. We did sign agreement for the design on that. I would like to see something done about design of the ambulance bays. That's I talked to RQAW, told me they need to get a hold of us or someone to start working on that, because the problem we always have is we come up with grants and then we don't have enough time to prepare for the grant, and we're looking at next year, maybe these ready grants coming out. If we have that stuff laid out, ready to bid or something, I think it would be a big asset to have done.
I'm a big proponent of getting these things on the shelf, even if we're not going to do them in the next few months or even the next year, because when these grants are available, we're up against the window to be able to facilitate these. If we're ready for them, then we can pull them off the shelf and proceed. The ambulance, the reason I wanted the ambulance in our last agreement with the monies that we had available to us last year, we'll probably have to go back to the council, because I think our professional fees are not going to meet what we need, and what we obliged our fees last year to will not. We didn't include these in it. I think it depends on whether we're going to own our own services, at least the assets of these services going into 2024. So if we are, then now's the time we need to act, because by July 1st we need to have our numbers together to be able to present to council as to what we want to do. And then if you want to go even beyond that, if we're going to own our assets in 24, because something's going to happen in 24 with our ambulance, then we're behind the 8 ball if we don't approve these things effectively now.
We need to find some company to start on this design of the building.
Well, that's why I wanted Actura included in this in the last time, so that's where I'd like to proceed with this ambulance. The same thing with the theater grant. I'd like to get that ready so that we know what we're doing, so that when grants come available. I'd also like to see the community start holding events there and actually fundraising for this theater, and getting our theater groups, our arts, and our whatever together to start help funding that, because that's probably going to be a lot of times that's going to be a 50% match on that type of grants. But if we don't know where we're going or what it's going to look like, it's hard to develop enthusiasm and get people going in any direction.
Let me see what I can do about that by next meeting, bring something back.
Well, we have Actura under contract already. We had a task order for them to do this ambulance bay. If we're
We could see if that could be expanded. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we can add a task, it's just the funding will have to come from a different source.
The funding we had there is dried up from that amount that we had. Okay.
We had 50,000, but it had to be allocated, and we didn't allocate it to this. So we only allocated to 2 things, and either we use it there or we don't use it there, and it's lost. So, or not lost, but it just,
Right.
I didn't mean it that way. It goes back to general fund, yeah. So now we need to either find the monies in our current budget or go back to council and ask for the monies. Or reallocate monies in our current budget, I guess. I've not looked into how we could do
Okay.
that.
We can do that.
So are we gonna ask the company to look at drawing the ambulance things, or are we holding off to add that as a task order, or what's the? Because I think Britton, you're asking to add that as a task order, right?
We could see if we could add it, like we probably should have on the first time, but.
So what are we at? Are we adding them to look at 3 bays, 2 bays?
Just one design of a standard.
Just
that
one
can be
design of
reproduced.
Well, my concept was a cookie cutter. We have, depending on how many ambulances we end up with, either we'll have 2 ambulances or we'll have 3 ambulances. Right now, we're running with 2. Documentation will decide whether we need the third or not. 911 dispatch is marking that every time that a third ambulance comes into play. At some point in time, whether it's this year or some future date, we may decide to have third ambulances. The ambulance committee, the facility committee that is, had cited 3 locations that we could place ambulances. Whether we want to use those or not, there was at least 3 locations. Going into 2024, right now we'll have 2 ambulances, regardless of however the services are provided. The question really is does the county want to own its assets, or do we want to continue like we are of embracing someone to provide all the assets plus all the manpower and so forth that goes with that? I believe that we should at least be moving toward owning the assets, but and that's where I'd make a motion that we do continue with the architecture, but the architecture I want to be a cookie cutter architecture. I want to, regardless of the site, we'll have to engineer or design a site for it.
Be the same
but I
building.
want the footprint to be the same.
So is the footprint gonna be like a 2 bay, a 1 bay, or has that already been decided? No?
It hasn't, to me.
We had a proposal from the ambulance committee on that drawing and stuff.
They suggested, I think, Mark, can you come up? I should have brought that with me
Yeah,
tonight.
I thought
didn't.
that's at home, and mine is anyway.
Just remembering, trying to remember, Mark O'Hare, Vermillion County MA. I believe it was 2 bay buildings, and there wasn't that there was going to be an ambulance sitting in every bay, but don't build 3 1-bay buildings and then next year say, oh, we want to add more ambulances. Our buildings don't fit. You know, plus you have work that you have to do in those bays. So I would say 2 bays, and I'm pretty sure that was our
That's what I was getting at, is I
recommendation.
didn't want to waste the architectural on a 1 bay and then decide we need 2. I want to make sure if we do move forward with it, that we at least go the minimum of 2 or whatever that size is, regardless if we use 3 locations or 2 locations or.
The other, I don't know if I read it in there or somebody mentioned it, was 1 bay expandable to 2 bay, but maybe I didn't read that in there.
Well, the depth, 1 bay's a drive-through,
Hmm.
so basically you have a 2 deep bay.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. And you know, these guys bring these ambulances back, and let's just go with COVID, you know, they have to sanitize this thing. They can't do that in a 1 bay garage. You got to pull everything out of there. You got to have room to work. So
That's true.
there's, you know, you're basically, you know, you're looking at if it's a 2 bay building, you're looking at probably a 3 bay garage with 2 doors, you know.
But you
larger
guys,
space
in that
between.
design, you've incorporated what you wanted in that design.
Right. What we did was we filled out a design questionnaire.
Okay.
Okay, because we started, Kevin Wickens actually started taking time to design a building, and he was like, you know, I could be wasting my time, you know, you can put in 100 hours and.
See, we could be using it tonight.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so we came upon this questionnaire that was online. If you want to buy a building or build a building, these are the things you need to know and when
So
answer
we
the
act
question.
upon what you guys recommend, you guys are gonna be happy.
Yep. And I think you asked if we would, you know, come back again when you're getting in that process, and I think everybody's on board with that, so.
I'd like to see us get someone involved to start designing it, so we'll have something ready.
Well, we are we finally got our FY '23 ambulance agreement out of the way. Now it's FY '24 that we're looking at. And if we don't start now with this, we will be out of time.
Yep.
So then we're going to be back to what we're doing today if we don't act here, I'm going to say now, basically.
There
So we'll
are,
be doing the same thing.
there are 2 new ambulance companies in the state of Indiana, and I have gotten in touch with both of them and found out
what they did to purchase their equipment, what their values were. Someone bought used equipment, some bought new, have their inventory sheets. Haven't really sat down and started drilling through it, but I'd had a conversation with Britton about 2 weeks ago about having somebody appraise the equipment, because you don't want to go pay for a truck that's, you wouldn't go buy a pickup truck that you didn't have somebody look at it, or you weren't a good mechanic and checked out. So you'd want to buy ambulances that way either. We got to find a person, and through the insurance companies we should be able to find an appraiser who will give them a value. Okay.
Okay.
As soon as this is over, we need to start having a meeting concerning the ambulance service. This is for 24, not for 23. We need to start that process here this month, because decisions are going to start coming. No-go decisions are going to be made. So
I agree that moving forward with owning the assets is a good start for the county. I've advocated for multiple years about having a county-owned service, and I think that's kind of steering in that direction, or starting in that direction. So I would agree with Britton that it's time to add that to the architectural firm and let them start designing those things. And then, like you said, later this month we can look at the contract for 2024, because that is going to make a difference if we own the assets in 2024.
well, basically we're down to July 1st of having our best numbers together by then, basically because of council, not because of us, but also depending on what are these no-go decisions are going forward here, will decide on what the 24 contracts will look like, regardless of whether it's a county-owned thing, an asset-owned thing, or what we're doing now. Regardless of that, these no-go decisions will influence that. So, are we in agreement to let Artura continue or add a task order to their contract?
Yes,
That's fine.
I'll contact them about that.
Okay, we do need to get our ambulance committee, facility committee, at least given direction in some way too. We want, since you guys have looked into this more than probably anybody else has today, be a valuable asset to start some of that discussion with them.
I'll make that phone call tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
The 2023 county commissioner appointments, we're going to put that off for another meeting. I've been working on the site. We did do a check that people had problems with putting a date in. They said someone said a date was holding them out or something, and I had IntelliLeap get on that and correct that. Got on it tonight and it worked. The other thing is I requested from the different entities on these different boards to submit to me what their board is, what it consists of, what the requirements are, the meetings, because when people apply for a board, they need to know what that board is and what it does, and it's been very vague on our site. So that's something I've been working on, and hopefully here in the next 2 weeks that will be where it should be. So we're going to hold off on those appointments till then. We need to set a date still, probably to meet before the next meeting for that, to discuss the applicants, if that would be something you guys could work out.
When are we ready for that?
Well, if we would be right up, maybe a couple days before our next meeting. We're going to have someplace we stop.
I'll look at my calendar and give you some dates that I'm available,
Okay.
but that'll be an executive session, or should be, anyway.
You in favor of having an executive session a couple days before the
That's fine.
meeting? And I'd like to get it resolved at the next meeting.
That's fine with me.
Is that okay with you?
Looks good.
Some different things. I want to make an announcement, and
We got these things before announcements, maybe.
Okay, we'll go through that.
Well, what was the,
They were just on my desk when I got back.
I called them and told them to go ahead and submit their prices.
At our
Because
December 20th meeting, we set a date for those, didn't we? Yeah, we set a date for those. Yeah, I don't know if it was today or it was the 17th, but it was one of our next commissioners meetings. We set a deadline for them to have their bids in.
do we publish or anything to that effect?
I thought we did.
In the paper, no.
Oh, I thought it was public. No.
We can ask John Spur about that. We'll see.
Not that we can't accept these in, but I'd feel a little bit better since we're going out to actually have it published in case
Yeah.
there's some other entity that's interested in the northern sector.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Make sure it's,
If you'll hold,
Yeah.
I think we,
At least we got them, so we're close to doing,
that's fine.
take care of them.
I know I asked him. It's lots of fun.
Just double check with them and, okay, before we,
we'll hold these in.
till next
until
meeting.
Then.
Make a public announcement. Some of you do know that the bridge over on 163 over Broats Creek is, the state of Indiana, the Department of Historical Preservation is trying to change the status of that bridge. When they said they changed it to a historical bridge, I thought they'd put a sign up and say this is a historical bridge, and but the changes that they're trying to do, they're trying to change it to one-lane bridge. And then also they're going to have flashers on both sides to limit it, and no one I've talked to is in favor of it. And so this is important that this gets out because there's going to be a meeting on January the 17th, and it's going to be at South Vermillion High School. And I think it was I'd have to look, it was 6. But anyway, that notice will be out. I encourage you all to be there. I know, especially Brent and I, we're historical people and we love history, but there's no practical, this decision is not practical, and it don't make sense. We did offer, and earlier in this conversation, I know we had been working with the trails system, and we always was looking out for bridges and stuff, and on bridge, one time Britain, I think, had them talking that way, right?
You know, we had a handshake agreement about moving it up to, potentially up to Hillsdale. Whether we could use it or not, that was still a matter of discussion, but the state would absorb all the costs, including repainting it for the potential of lead, moving it, and actually placing it. The only question that was really outstanding was what the abutments might be, and the indication then was that the possibility that the state would pay for the abutments even at that point to move the bridge. They were that interested in getting it moved. Well, this thing started back in 2008, 2010, and it went up to 2020, and something happened in 2020 that the state just signed an agreement apparently with the federal system, federal highway, that started looking at historical structures. And I never got notice in 2020. They sent it to somebody else, but it never, I think, I'm not sure, not all the commissioners got it anyway. We were listed as, what was it, consulting parties, I guess is the way it was listed, but and asked for questions or comments and whatever else. Well, that didn't happen, or not. It did happen, but unbeknownst to me, it happened anyway. I didn't find out about it until 2021. Well, even then, it looked like they were still going to potentially move it. We just had to save the bridge. Well, then it became a different designation. Again, it became a select historic structure. And what that meant was that you got to use it in place if you can. And to me, that I called foul at that point. So I don't know where it's going against us right now. There's been 2 other bridges, though, that have had this happen. Only one of them up by Tippecanoe County has this ever been used on. It will be the second. There was one over at Eel River Bridge there at, what's the name?
Clay County. Clay County.
Yeah, it's Clay, Bowling Green. There at Eel River, that structure was one that was supposedly going to be a select structure. I don't know how they got it out of the designation, but it was moved to Brown County, and the state paid for all that to happen down to Brown County State Park. And I asked about that. I go, well, how did that happen? And the answer was that, well, people talked about it, and there was remonstrance against leaving it there, and I expect some political pressures were placed. I don't know, but it got moved. Actually, we have another one up here, Highway 36, which they redid. I'm not sure it's ever got to the select, but they decided to repaint that instead of replacing it, basically 36 and Wabash River. I'm not sure it has a designation. This one's important because it was a Knox County firm that designed the bridge and built the bridge and placed the bridge, I guess. So it became that's what made it a select bridge, I guess, because of that. It has some unique history to it that allowed that to happen. We have issues with it in that we want to save the historic bridge too, but it doesn't need to stay in use when it's not a practical use for the county or for the state residents of Indiana. It is a state bridge. It's not our bridge. They do get to decide this, but we do also get to make comment on it. And in my mind, if you want to save that bridge and you don't want to keep it in use where it has the potential of flood damage, vehicular damage, overloading, actually, I doubt if it's even made for earthquake. Nowadays, you have to even size structures for earthquake, and I don't know if they've ever done that for this bridge either, besides the environmental issues. One of the other things there is that you can leave it in place, but if you have an alternative of being able to place a bridge beside it, then that's an alternative also. Well, if NDOT wants to keep the bridge, then fine, put a bridge beside it. If you look at the alignment of that road, that can be done. Now, there's an environmental consequence to it too, of all those things I just mentioned, plus a few others that get into the NEPA classifications for permits in the Corps of Engineer, but it can be done. But for some reason, that one's getting left out, that you can put a bridge beside that one too. So anyway, there's a number of negatives to it. It's going to affect bus routes for a year or more. It's going to affect our ambulance services, our fire services, well, emergency services altogether, including police, about reaction times of being able to get across. It will delay by a minute or 2 minutes that type of issue. When you got two people trying to cross over, they said, well, they got time to get over. Okay, that always works out well too when you got two people can't fit through a bridge, or an oversized load that can get through a bridge. We already have problems with our farm equipment not being able to make bridges as it is, either with height requirements or width requirements. Now you're going to be restricted even further, and so what does that do to the economy of the area and to the farmers and anybody else that has overload or oversized equipment? So those are some of the issues, and if you would show up on this date, it will make a difference. It may still have the same result, but it will make a difference. So.
January 17th, Southern High School. Public notice is out on that. I'll be putting out a bunch.
I think the gates, the doors open at 5:30, and I think it begins at 6, something like that.
So this is your time to come and speak. See what else.
But let's be respectful if we go, and let's make sure that we have good arguments if we're going to make an argument. But think it through before you get there, and just because you don't want it, okay. I guess that's one reason, but anyway. Think it through and prepare your mind, prepare a statement, if you will, before you go, and let's make it look good. Let's do a good job with this.
Okay. Does anybody, public, have anything to say? Marjorie, you have any comment you want to? Anybody? Well, motion adjourned.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.